Hello and welcome to my tropical style garden here in the UK. We all go through life living day by day. Some days being better than others, whether that be your wedding day, whether that be the birth of a child. We all have them super days that we look forward to and are just that bit better than others. For me, today, my special day is the day my liner turned up. I can finally, after months of work on the garden, creating new paths, creating bridges, creating tunnels and new wooden decking, I've got to the point where I can look at putting it all back together and finally create my dream pond. Before we start moving forward with the pond, I just want to rewind a little bit and go back to what inspired me to change my whole garden and go ahead with building this pond. Now, over the last couple of years, I've been very lucky enough to do some amazing tours which are on my channel. Pretty much starting off with Oak Barn Exotic Garden that I found absolutely mesmerising and took so many ideas from that. Then there was Simon and Harriet's garden, which was just such a high level with colour and real exotic plants. And then there was also Anthony's, the jungle garden, and the way he planted it and the design and everything like that. I knew at some point I had to move my garden forward. And then last year, I think it was, I was on one of the tropical forums on Facebook, and Joe from Shade Water Gardens put a video up of his garden and the pond he had created. I watched that video and I was absolutely blown away and mesmerised. And for you lot to get an idea of the impact that that video had on me, I think you'll need to see it for yourself. So watch this and see what you think. Even now, after watching that video so many times, I'm still blown away by it. The creators are the two brothers, Joe and Ben from Shade Water Gardens. Since building that pond, they've gone on to run a business where they create these ecosystem type ponds for people, and they've gone on to do the water elements on gold winning gardens for Chelsea this year. Then back to back straight after that, platinum winning garden for Gardeners World, and then went on to do another one at Hampton Court. So that shows that the detail that these lads work to. If you check out their Instagram or their YouTube, you can see some of the other ponds they've done. Absolutely outstanding work. I felt like the boys deserved a really good shout out because the help and advice they've gave me to get me to this point has been top class. So I just wanted to say my appreciation and thank them for that. But as much as they've given me brilliant advice, I'm also going to put my own little twists on it and try and do things my way, right or wrong. We'll soon sort of see. But that was my initial inspiration, that video. Then Joe was kind enough to let me come visit his garden, do a little video, show me around, talk about the details of the pond, and that just pushed on the idea to get on with a new design, a pond which just evolved, got bigger and bigger. But realistically, as much as that all inspired me, the idea of having a pond and fish came from way further back than that. When I was about 15, 16 years old, still at school, I was into fishing, and I used to come down to this old brick pits where there was loads of carp, tench, fish like that swimming around in the big lakes. And even now we come here, me and my wife, for walks, and it brings back those childhood memories. It's changed a lot now. These bridges weren't here, they've turned it into a nature reserve. It's now a beautiful lake full of wildlife. These reeds here never used to be here. There is water under there, and it used to be what we called the backwaters. And as a young teenager, used to go fishing over there, and used to watch the tench swim around all over the place. It was full of life. And even remember, we used to keep our eye out because there used to be the odd golden tench in here, and it was like a bonus if you could see it swimming around. But other than just the fishing, I used to love to just come and sit for ages, hiding in the trees, overlooking the banks, looking into the shallow waters and watching the fish swim around. There used to be some really large common carp, mirror carp, and they'd come right up to the surface, and it was just mesmerising to watch. And I think their memories are still in my head. And when I do my garden and I have this new pond, the idea that their memories can come back, it can make me smile, just gives me even more reason to want to do it. I've found the old track round the back to these backwaters. This bridge never used to be here either, and the weed has definitely overgrown, but it still reminds me of all them years sat on the bank when the trees and shrubs were probably a bit smaller. The water used to be so clear, these fish would just swim backwards and forwards, and it was just so tranquil, so mesmerising. And I know this is basically the back of a lake, but the inspiration towards my own garden, which will be done in tropical plants obviously, but the way things are overhanging the edge of the water, softening all the edges so you can't even see the banks, is definitely something I'll be looking at doing around my stream area. And also going around here, I like, if I can zoom in a bit, the way that this shrub area staggers further forward than this one, so I can see the water goes round, but I can't see all the way. And I definitely, in my stream area, want to take that into consideration. Right, I thought I'd take a little walk down memory lane, because to get a garden to look good is one thing, but if you can get it to feel good as well, so when you're sat in there and you come back from a super stressful day and you can just chill, relax remember, if I can achieve anything like that, I'll be a very, very happy man. Okay, so that now shows you where the inspiration came from. Now it was time to move forward, and at that point my garden just had a big circular lawn, and I had no intention of touching that. But at the back of the garden I'd had an old patio and an area that I didn't really use anymore, and I come up with the idea that I was going to build just a small pond in that patio area, which as I moved forward was to the right here. This was all patio, and I come up with the idea that I was just going to build a small pond. And as a landscape gardener, I'd never built a pond like this before, just a small wildlife pond. For me, it always starts on paper. I have to draw it down to get it into my head to see how that may work. So the first original design, which in a lot of ways, if I'd stuck to, I probably would have had much more money in the bank. But this was just the first original design with this water here, a bridge and a bridge, which meant there would have been water there, a bridge and a bridge. And that was going to be it. Just a small pond with maybe a few little goldfish swimming around it. And that was it. But then with all this inspiration in my head, I just couldn't stop thinking of different ways to do with stuff. And the point is, it doesn't have to be professional or anything like that. And I just started flicking around with different drawings. So then I thought, oh, it'd be nice to, what if I put a pond in the front and just did a stream going around the back? So just a scribble at the point with really detailed pictures of little fishes swimming in the round. Yeah, just nothing special, but I started to watch videos and look how to do this type of pond, and it got my brain thinking. Then I thought, right, I've got a circular lawn here, so I need to sort of look at other things. So then I started thinking, right, what if I make the lawn smaller and put some sort of feature around here, planting all the way around here, and then I could just bring the pond around maybe and do a little bit into there. But my brain was still thinking, what's the point? What's the point in bringing just such a small bit into there? You're not really going to gain that much. So I think my brain kept going, just still scribbling. So then I sort of come up with this idea, and it sort of showed, and this was just going to be a delicate stream. At this point, no idea that fish were going to go there. I thought it'd be nice to put a bridge there, and then maybe put a bigger water feature in here with all planting here and do a kidney shaped lawn. And it was at that point where I started to think, hold on, you know, that almost reminded me of like the yin yang sign, and that sort of got my brain going a bit more. So I still kept playing around with it. I then sort of drew out a circle with the yin yang shape, showing this part of the pond coming in. This was all still going to be planting. The path went round a bridge, stream. It was still evolving. I was still thinking, well before I even thought about putting the spade in the ground. So I'm starting to get the idea of what I want, but then I was sort of still thinking, this bit's a bit boring around here. This is just going to be plants. What else could I do to add that sense of journey? So let's see where we went from there. Okay, we're going to ignore that one because that's just about the specs maybe for the wetland filter. Then I think this was my first one where I sort of started to draw it out, and I'd sort of come up with a yin yang design. I figured, oh, it'd be nice to put a stream in here. This bit's a bit to give me an idea that as I walked round, there would be the path. And then I'd go back round. This is how my old paths used to be, going round to my cabin. And then I could go round and do a little bit of that original, my first ever drawing around the back with a sleeper walkway there. So I think at this point, I messaged my friend Anthony from the Jungle Garden UK, and said, basically sent a picture saying, I've sort of come up with this weird yin yang design. and I wasn't sure if I liked it or not. And he sort of said, oh yeah, he liked it. And then it sort of got, right, hold on, is it that out there to do a yin yang design garden? So I then went from that to this. I'm just trying to get my order right. I'm not sure if it is. So basically then I decided that I was going to change this back path. If I put them side by side, this originally was my old cobble path. It had like a rainbow arch shape here and stuff, but I then decided, hold on, what would it look like if I did a different, went through my old border and put this path in, which you can now see over the other side, and then maybe some stepping stones or change that. Then I had to draw one to scale. I had to come out, measure where everything was, check that it would fit, know how big that the circle had to be, how big the yin yang was going to be, and all that. Now I knew this was still going to evolve, but I had to have pretty much an idea of what I was going to dig out, how it was all going to look and everything. So I thought I'd show them drawings to show that you can sometimes just scribble around. Ideas are going to change, things are not going to necessarily be right to start with. But as a landscaper, one thing I have realised over time is if you keep changing your mind too much, you know, that can cost you money. You can dig out more than you need to, then you've got to replace it with other stuff. So you sort of need to give yourself, however you're going to do it, give yourself a good plan. It can evolve, but try not to make it too drastic, because you could end up costing yourself a lot more money than you need. For instance, if I dug all this out and then decided that I didn't want it that deep, I'm going to have paid to have dug all that soil out, put it in skips. Then I'm going to have to go, oh no, actually now I just want it as a stream. I've decided to change that. I'm going to have to backfill it all, and all that extra expense. So like I say, let it evolve, but try to have a plan to start with. Right, so we now know how I got to this point and the reasons behind it and the work that's been involved to get to this stage. So now we're going to talk about the construction. And to start with, we'll have a little walk around what's been dug out, and the process I'm going to follow. Just need to make this absolutely clear to everyone. This is my first pond. This is my first, especially it's going to be an ecosystem pond. For research, I've spoke to people that built them. I've watched probably 200 plus videos of all the people in America that build these aquascape type ponds and try to get as many little details and stuff as I can. I'm going to get things wrong, I'm sure. As long as I don't pierce the liner, I can pretty much think I can get over most of it. So the idea of an ecosystem pond is, it's not like lots of the traditional like type ponds we'll get in the UK, where you see the liner, it's quite formal, stuff like that, maybe just rocks around the outside. It's designed to mimic nature and let nature basically almost take care of the pond, with obviously some sort of mechanical pumps and stuff like that to aid that situation, as far as I'm aware. So the idea is it's going to have an intake bay or a skimmer which takes all the rough leaves and stuff off that fall in, to help that, to stop that falling down, and you know, put nutrients into the water. It's then going to have a wetland filter, which is like a bog filter at the far end, which is going to help filter all the fish waste. I am going to have koi in this. Now, people are telling me that it's not deep enough, it's not big enough, everything like that. I appreciate your opinions, but as much as you've got your opinions, I've also spoke to other people with different opinions. So you know, I'm going to go with my gut on this. I've spoke to people that know of ponds in this nature, in cold areas, zone sort of 6s in America, where they've had much colder temperatures than me. I'm zone 8 area here, much colder winters than me, and they've had ponds that have only been sort of just about 2 foot deep. Mine at the back is 3 foot deep. The myth is that it needs to be 4 foot plus deep. I'm in a very sheltered place. I have lots of overhead coverage. You may be listening to me going, that's just not going to work, that's stupid. Honestly, you're entitled to your opinion, but I'm going to go with this whatever, because I've seen it done. So if I have to take a bit of extra protection in the winter and it's really cold and I think I have to build a little bit of a polycarbonate structure over the back, I'll do something. But this is how I'm going with it. Appreciate it. Put it in the comments if you think different or whatever. But I've dug as deep as I'm going to dig, and I'm going to go with it. Right, so let's go into the whole situation. So this is dug out. The ledges are in there to obviously help build up the rock situation. You won't see any part of the liner, hopefully, by the time I've done. This bit is going down. It's about 2.5 foot deep. Say the one that I showed you earlier, the video clip of the tropical pond, that one is only about 2 foot deep. That has small koi in it. Yes, they will get a lot bigger, but you know, we'll deal with that as that sort of goes on. So it's being done in 3 pieces of liner. So what I mean by that is I looked at doing it in different ways, seaming it together, which is where you can sort of glue and tape different parts of liner together. Now, going up that stream is very, very tricky. If I had to seam, I'd need the area to put a flat board out to try and glue it and tape it. There is such limited space. So I've had to go for 1 piece of liner, which is 15 meters long, that will get me from this front edge all the way to the back wetland filter. And then the back part, which I'll show you as we get round there, that will then be a separate piece of liner, as will there'll be a separate piece of liner on the right. So how did I measure it? Let's go with that first. Rightly or wrongly, this is how I did it. So I've got one of these flexible tape measures. All right. I've basically, on this side, I've gone over 1 foot past the edge. I actually know that when the rocks come in, they'll be in here somewhere, because they'll be backfilling the soil. So it will actually be smaller than what it probably looks at the minute. And then I've put these rocks down so I can get each step as it goes. I've left a bit of slack because I know that when I've got to clean this out before I obviously put the underlaying liner in. So there'll be a lot of getting these stones out. There will be a thin layer of sand on the bottom as well, just to help cushion under the underlay. So the tape goes up like this. So like I say, I've left there's at least 40 centimeters past on this side. What's that? 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, let's say about 16 inches anyway, for the Americans. Right, and then that side, so at this point here, I'll zoom back so you can see whereabouts that is. That is at 4 foot. So then I've gone up and I've got to the top near the Jabaya, and that's nearly 4.5. But I want more past that. I want to be able to fold it. I want a bit to play with. So I've rounded that up to 5 meters. At the back, I needed 5 meters wide. But through the trench, I only needed 3 meters wide to go down, across and up, and have more than enough spare to go under the rocks. Now that would have meant one liner here, join it, another thinner liner, another one. So I've just gone for a 15 meter liner. It's a EPDM aquascape liner. It's about the best you can get, or must be one of the very best. It really is. I've spent the money and gone for one of the best I can get. So basically 15 meters long, 5 meters wide. So I'm gonna have loads of spare, loads of waste that goes over there. But I'll deal with that because it makes my life easier, not having to seam it, do it all in one piece. I can relax and chill. Right, so to the right here, I'm not going to go into too much detail because this will become more explanatory how this whole crate situation is going to work. The pump's going to be under there, so I'll be able to lift part of the bridge out to get to an access chamber to the pump. And then I'm not too sure what's happening up there yet. I don't know how big I'm going to build. There'll be a little waterfall, a delicate one or a bigger one. I'm not really sure. I've got enough liner that I'm going to join, so I'm going to seam it somewhere across here with tape to join this one to the main big 15-meter liner, and then I should have plenty spare around there to play around, be creative, see what happens, and deal with that situation. Loads of these plants are all around here. I'm gonna have to move them out of the way to give myself a bit more room. I'm gonna take them further to the back, but like part of my idea is like plants like this, Manihoc Grahami, you know, have these hanging over the edge to give that a little bit of shade, and also because they've got such good leaf shape, you're also going to get that same reflection into the water, so you're going to get double whammy of that. Now you're going to get these really interesting leaves to look at, but you're also going to get the reflection in the water because the sun comes from around that way, so it will create the shadows and the reflections from that way of also these really interesting leaf shapes. So that's part of my thinking as well. Okay, one bit that I haven't done very well, and I didn't think of when I built these, when I bedded these bridges on, I did quite a slapdash bit of concrete in just to bed them on and level them off. Well, at that point I was just thinking about getting them in, getting them bedded down, that's all good, without really thinking, hold on, the liner, I'm going to zoom out a bit. So without thinking, the liner actually doesn't just stop here because the water does, the liner's got to come up here and up the back. Well, even with the underlay, this is way too rough. So I'm going to have to do some work on that and clean these edges off as well to give myself room to either get some sort of slate or something, some stone walling or something to clean these edges off. Yeah, so bit of work there. And plus, when I bedded these down, I tapped them down with my mallet so they were level, but obviously now I've got an underlay, a liner and another underlay going there and up, and it will be hid behind the bridge, but that will then be about 6 inches higher than the water level. Now that's obviously then going to pack up my bridge, so I'm gonna have to grind probably about 15 mil off here, so then I can just, when I put the bridge back in, if I need to, I can put a couple of packers on top of the overlay and just sort of level it off, something like that. But yeah, if you're going to do anything like this and your underlay, your line has got to go over this, you need to do a much cleaner job than me. That's a lesson learned. I didn't really think about it at the time. I just sort of wanted to get it in after I'd built the paths and didn't put much thought into how the liner was going to work. Realistically, I think I would have built a bigger concrete pad, nice clean edges, which I would have rounded off with a grinder. That's a boring conversation talking about concrete, but I didn't want people seeing it and thinking that's how to do it, because I've definitely not done that, a good job of that. Right, this is shallowed up now, and there's a reason this is shallower. This is going to be about 1.5 foot deep, and basically this is just going to be deep enough for the fish to swim backwards and forwards. If I make it too deep, because of the vertical sides and the line is going to go up there, it's going to be so hard for me to retain. So over time you might find that this wants to landslide in. You know, it's going to be helped by all the plants. If you think about all these palm trees, they're going to put out a web of roots, and all them roots help tie all the soil in together and help make it stronger. But realistically, for this part, if I have two vertical things, what's to stop after real wet seasons it wanting to push in on the sides if I haven't got enough rocks? So one of my first jobs before I start today, I'll be taking a bit more off these sides, I think, just to widen this up before it goes round. But I do not mind this bit being shallow. I've watched lots of videos with koi, and they They love to swim around in the shallow parts. They'll have the deeper parts to go to, but the fish, you know, should be absolutely fine. It's literally just a passageway through. And the other thing is, I like the idea that as they swim through, they swim quite high, you know. I'm going to see them. I'm going to see them just under the surface as they pass under the bridge. Going around here, this bit's going to drop down. It gets a bit deeper when I clear and dig out this bottom bit. That's about 2 foot deep. This is where my tunnel's going in. That will all be hid. I'll hide with rocks at the front. It's going to be shallower across here with like stepping stones, hopefully with like a crack in it sort of thing. So the water has to go through the tunnel, but it also has to be able to flow to the top. So any leaves or anything that drop into the water will be then drawn back down. I'm also going to try and put the odd jet into here of water to help create a current. You know, koi do like to swim into a current and through a current. It helps push the water along. It helps dead spots so you don't get stagnant areas where they're not really oxygenated, and the grime and the muck can all just build up. So there's a lot of work still to go into cleaning all this out, even though it's all dug, before the underlaying liner can go in. Plus I'm not going to get all these pebbles out. It's absolutely full of it. So if I have to double underlay, I will, to protect it. I will go around with a brush, try and get as many of the big stones off as I can, check with my hands. I'll feel around, trying to make sure there's no roots sticking out that are going to pierce anything. I'll make sure that there's, as best I can, because there's been so much glass in here. It's been unbelievable. Okay, moving around, we're now going to be coming out of the tunnel area where the stepping stones will go up to the secret path that way. Then this bit, I've got to take this crate out. I've got to have a good clean up here, scrape all the bottom of this off. I'm going to use sand along the bottom, and then this is going to step down. This stake, by the way, is pretty much where water level is going to be in this area, but it does go down when I clear all that up to about 3 foot deep. Obviously that crate's going to come out. It was just so I could stand on, because all the leaves kept falling from the top. I'm half debating, because that's going to give me a bit of a problem from the Tetrapanics. I was half debating maybe to cut one of the branches off before I start, just to let a bit more light in. If I move forward, you'll see better, because it's got quite claustrophobic now. Hell of a specimen, but it does drop them big leaves now and again. Forget about that bit for a minute. That's going to be all the filter system. That'll make more sense when we talk about it. Otherwise, I'm going to double talk about everything. So the idea is this bit's just going to step down, build the sides up, and across there, about 1.5 foot under the water, under my decking, I'm going to put some rocks to build a fish cave. So in the winter, in this most sheltered part, if they want to come down here, this will be the deepest part of the pond. And if they want to, or if any of the other types of fish that I may have in here want to go and find somewhere in here under this cave, they've got a deep part to come and hide, protected, and stuff like that. So that's basically the walk through. At the minute, it looks a mess, a lot to do, and there is a lot to do. But once I can get this big bit of liner in, that liner, by the way, should reach all the way to here, go down there, across, up there, and up, and overlap that. Then that back bit, we're going to build that up, put some rocks in, we're going to build that soil up, and then that's going to be about 6 inches higher, and then the water will be higher, so that water's going to be just below that decking on that bit, where it's going to be quite a bit lower here, and then it's going to probably have like a 6-inch waterfall there, and maybe a little side one there, and then I might try and do another little waterfall coming from the back. This back sleeper I wanted to take out so I could build that all of rocks. I've got one on the side here which I think is most definitely going to come out, but I need it to retain the soil for now. But this back one is going to be a problem because of the way this huge Tetrapanics has embedded itself around it. So I think I'm going to leave it, try and rock in front of it and hide it, and plant to hide it, because the way this Tetrapanics leans, I don't want to take that out and cause quite a bit of instability right at the bottom of the trunk. If it rots away eventually, that's nothing I can do about that. That sleeper's one of the old treated ones, so obviously that will be kept well away from any pond line or whatever, to make sure there's no chance that if there's any creosote or oils in that, nothing can get anywhere near the water, because that would pretty much be disastrous, I think. Right, I've had a big walk through the whole sort of garden, pond area I should say. I really need to get on now. I'm doing a lot of this filming to give you a good introduction to how this pond has got to this point. It's taking my time to do all this filming. I've no problem with that. I'm doing it for you lot. You lot have followed me along on this whole journey, but I do actually need to do some work now, so I better get on with some. Right, so I've been spending a little bit of time now cleaning everything off, all the edges and stuff, and down the sides, cleaning the concrete, stuff like that, and it's becoming an absolute nightmare. As I'm cleaning the sides off, the ledges, this is the sort of stuff I'm having to deal with. Soil absolutely full of glass, so I'm having to be a bit careful what I'm digging out and what I'm not digging out. There's a couple of instances where I've dug out, cleaned up that, and there was all rubble in the side that all started caving in, so I've got to be very careful around that. I can, when the crate goes in the liner and all that, I can backfill around the back with sand, so that'll become apparent later on. But what I think I'm definitely going to have to do is try and get, like I say, some sand for the bottom, and I wouldn't normally put double the underlay, because the underlay is pretty good. It's, you know, heavy duty underlay, but I'm so sort of worried about all this possible bits of sharp stone and glass that I just might not be able to see or find. I'm going to double underlay it all. If it means I have to buy some more for the inside because I haven't got enough, then that's what it is. I just cannot risk, because I tried to cut corners, that I may pierce it or get a hole in this liner. So if you've got good soil and you're trying to do a pond and your soil's really good and you haven't got the stones and the glass and all the rubbish I've got, a good quality heavy duty underlay under your liner should be fine for most people. It may even be fine for me, but my paranoia is going to take over and I'm just not going to risk it. The other thing is, I just sort of wanted to clarify what I said earlier, is just because I'm not going that deep, that's more down to practicality and everything for myself. You know, I would also say, if you can go deeper, go deeper. You know, if you can go 3-4 foot, go deeper. I don't think you need to go much deeper than 4 foot realistically. But obviously if you go sort of deeper and you're in, especially if you're in full sun, I've got quite a lot of shade on this pond, but if you're in full sun, that depth of water's probably going to help regulate the temperature, I should imagine. You know, you don't want to get in too hot in summer and too cold in winter. So just wanted to clarify that. If you can go deeper and you haven't got a problem with that, by all means go deeper. That may be something that I regret at a later date, but at the minute it's, I could have dug more out there, but then I would have had to have a wider liner. That would have cost me way more money. There's just this big knock-on effect. The more you dig out, the more it's going to cost you. And I'm more than aware of that, because the first, as you see from the designs earlier, started off much, much smaller and then just kept getting bigger and bigger. Right, let's see if we can get on with some more work. Well, that's a little bit annoying. I've run out of sharp sand. I've put about 50 mil. Let me move through here quickly because it's too bright for the camera. But all the way through here, I've put about 2 inches, 50 mil of sharp sand all the way along the bottom, just to try and cushion the bottom of the layer. It's going to have 2 lots of underlay on it, which is obviously would probably be more than enough, but I had this sand, so I thought I'd use it just to make sure. I'm probably going to go and pick up a bit more tomorrow because I've got a lot of backfilling and stuff to do. But I think it's nearly time for the underlay. to go down. We're gonna have to just trim up some of these roots, go around the secateurs, cut any of these bits off that might be sticking out, any sharp or jagged ones, sweep off some of these edges just to clear them off with a dustpan and brush. Just be aware that, you know, I probably didn't need to put sharp sand under this because I'm double membraning it, but if you do use sand, use sharp sand or grit sand as they call it here in the UK, either or they call it, but it's got little tiny stones in it and texture, and it's gritty and it drains really free. If you use sand that you would build a brick wall with, which we call soft sand, that goes all soggy and horrible and will not be any good for drainage, so you definitely don't want to use that. The back bit's going to be the rear cave, like I said earlier. That's just pretty much about 3 foot deep down to that sand. I'm not going to worry about the wetland yet. I'm going to worry about this main section so I can get this big bit of liner in, which hopefully we can do very soon. That's the day disappearing very, very quickly. It's now 7 o'clock in the evening, so realistically we've only got about an hour or so before it gets dark to try and get the liner in. Me and my wife have been in here the last sort of couple of hours cutting off bits of roots, taking out the last of the stones, and then we've put this heavy duty underlay, which is really good quality stuff. It's proper thick. I don't know if you can see it, but it's given me so much confidence, to be fair. I had a 4 metre roll by 30 metres. It's about 15 metres to the back there, so we did the first section in one go. We brought it all the way through, pushed it all down, and then we've overlapped with like bibs over the sides. We haven't doubled every bit of it because we felt like down there where it all had sand at the bottom, it was more than fine, it was more than thick enough. But where the sides were particularly stony, or maybe a little bit scary to anything pierce through, we've doubled up lots of these bibs. So that's I'm going to watch where I walk, but we'll go back down here again. Don't know how many times we've done this in this video. So yeah, come round here, come round. I haven't done the back yet because we're doing that in a separate part, but we've got we've doubled up with bibs, like smaller pieces we've cut to overlap just for reinsurance, because I had some of the roll left. I still have a full another roll to go over the top, so I have enough to do all the back and to do the top. When the liner goes in, we'll do that. I'm hoping we can do that before it gets dark, because I ain't gonna be able to carry it in on my own tomorrow. I want to do it while the whole family's here to help me lift it in. If I can get that at least in and spread around, I can mess about with it tomorrow, getting all the folds right. Obviously, the key thing is when you're doing this is to make sure that there's plenty of slack. You haven't got any tension on any of the joints in here. You've got to make sure that everything's pulled down. There's a bit of slack in there is what we found. But right, that's the underlayment all in. Now it's been a bit of a pain trying to keep it clean because it's quite windy today and it just keeps blowing rubbish in all the time. So we're keeping our eye out. Before the liner goes in, we'll have one last check, make sure nothing's blown in, that like bits of stick or bits of stone have fallen down. But if so, we might have to even give it a quick hoover if any of the dodgy bits get there. So we're probably overthinking it, but gone to all this effort, I may as well do it right. Okay, so that's the sort of liner in. It's not fully done because we need to do all the nice folds and neat creases, because it has been an absolute nightmare to get in. It was long enough, it was wide enough, more than wide enough going up the stream, but because of that we've had a lot of slack to deal with. Keeps wanting to fall in, loads and loads of creases because we're going round S-bend. I'm just gonna take my shoes off because I'm paranoid. I know that the big boy landscapers walk all over these, but right, so that's the rubber in, that's the deepest part. That's where I've got to seam another piece too to go into there, so that will be have another piece joined to that. This was 5 meters wide by 15 meters long, and I nearly just slipped in. Obviously I've got to make sure these creases are much better than this and tidier. Make sure there's no slack, so you don't want any tension on it when we do it. Work all the way down here. Again, feels like a toboggan slide through where the tunnel's going to be into the back. Plenty of excess liner. I'm really happy with that because that allows me room to play. That's the deep bit going up, all good. So it's getting late now. I think it's 8:15, so I'm gonna have to think about packing up soon. And the wife's got bits to do. She's been helping me. She's been brilliant. What we're going to quickly do just for tonight is I'm going to get some of the overlay, cut strips, and just hang it down over it, weigh it down, because I may be a little bit paranoid, but the neighbour's cats run around the garden, a bit worried one's going to jump in, claw its way up. Now that may not do nothing at all, but I'm that paranoid. In case something falls in it, because it's been a windy day, I want to just at least try and cover it, and then tomorrow I can retake that covering off, play about getting the creases, start off at one bit, work my way around, make sure everything's good, and then hopefully start getting rocking in tomorrow. Okay, that's the liner in. Right, that's it for today. It's nearly 9 o'clock. It's just starting to get dark now. In all honesty, I never imagined it was going to take so long for me to finish off the digging out at the back and cleaning it all off and all that. The day just disappeared before I even knew it. I expected to get loads more done today, but I've got myself set up, ready for tomorrow, to hopefully get on with it all. This membrane we've just chucked in now. I just wanted to protect the liner overnight, like I said. That might be overkill. I just was so nervous about leaving it exposed all night long, not knowing what might happen. I will lift this overlay out tomorrow, work on the creases, probably do this in smaller parts, and then hopefully start to get some rocks in. That bit, I need to get that seamed in before I rock this area. You can't see it at the minute because I've put this blooming membrane everywhere. But that was awkward. If any of you are thinking about doing a pond with a stream like that, that is just was so awkward to get the line around and everything. I'm so glad that I did it in one long piece, because it would have been a nightmare trying to think how to join it and stuff. I also feel I'm probably more over paranoid than I should have been. I watched the pond guys get in and out with their boots on and everything like that. We were literally taking our shoes off every time to walk around the rubber barefooted because we were so worried in case we got a stone in the sole of our shoe. Okay, this video has just been the start. It's been a long enough video to get just to this point with the introduction, the inspiration and everything like that. I'm going to carry on filming, see where we go from there, and hopefully not too long from now, me and you lot can all get to see the pond finally, or 3/4 of the way done. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, give it a thumbs up. It really does help. We say that all the time and then no one ever does, and I am the same. Sometimes I watch a video and I just forget to do it, but it really does help sort of YouTube push the videos out to more and more people. Okay, thank you very much. You know where to leave the comments, good or bad, I imagine. So I'll see you next time.